All right, once again, welcome Kristina and Tina from the Pollinator Project.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. So I've been with Pollinator Project Rogue Valley for quite some time, and then Tina is a new volunteer, and I wanted to invite her, and I'm really happy to see Deb on the show as well. So I wasn't burned by the fire. Obviously, I was impacted. Our office is in downtown Phoenix, and this program that I wanted to share with you, it came about because of the fire, and it seems that there's such a need in the community for beauty and joy and things like that that are hard to come by, especially for people that have gone through something that's unimaginable for somebody like me. So I'm going to go ahead, I guess, and share my screen. I do have a presentation that we used before for some of our From Fire to Flower Pollinator Garden Program people, and then also combine that with some information about pollinators and gardens, because I think it's going to be interesting for you to know some of this and why we're doing this. We have multiple reasons. So I'm going to share my screen and hope that this will work out. Zoom is such a way of communicating these days, so we're all getting used to it, I think. So this is put together to show you some of the options that are out there to help bring a little bit more life back into your life. So I introduced myself, Kristina Lefever. I'm the primary volunteer, if you will, and president of the board of Pollinator Project Rogue Valley. And Tina has joined our team for the From Fire to Flowers garden program, and also help do things in the nursery and some of the others. We have a number of volunteers, and you'll see a picture of Deb in a little bit. So this is sort of the agenda, who we are, why we're doing this, give you a little bit of information about our goals in terms of putting the gardens together, and then show you some of the gardens, just a few of the gardens that we've already accomplished, and then leave a little bit of time. So this is a native sweat bee on a Bolander sunflower, which is a native flower that was growing outside of our office, I think last summer or the summer before, and I'm really proud of this picture. It's one of my better ones, so I wanted to share it. This is another picture in front of our garden. In front of our building, our garden in front of our building. That's our address, 312 North Main in Phoenix. These are both two species of native plants, coyote mint and Oregon sunshine, one of my favorites. And our mission, our vision is to really bring back, restore the landscape with native plants as much as possible. Our world has changed so much since we've been here, since humans have been here in the last, 400 years. And I think bringing knowledge back to people in urban areas especially is important, because then we can begin to see how we can create corridors. So we're working with community members such as yourself, as well as other people who come to our plant sales to buy plants. We're interested in increasing the numbers and diversity of species of pollinators, as well as native plants, and helping educate our communities about why that's important. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. These are a couple more pictures from our place in Phoenix. This is our garden on the right, and then on the left is a shot from our propagation nursery last summer. Shows you some of the seeds that we have going and some of the plants. And then here's some of our volunteers this past Halloween when we were getting a seeding day going to grow out more plants. And then this is one of the shots of our team putting together the final touches of a pollinator garden, From Fire to Flowers pollinator garden that we did in Phoenix. This is Vanessa. She would be here, but she's out of town. That's me, Sharon Bryson, and then Sue. Maureen took that picture, the owner of the property. And so what we're wanting to do, as I said, restore the land one pollinator garden at a time, planting gardens that will be for pollinators as well as for people, and be able to help create that community of gardeners and connectivity of gardeners gardens across the landscape. So we're really wanting to feed the pollinators for the people. And these are 5 of the gardens that we've done so far, before and after. You'll see this one a little bit more. And these 2 are in Ashland, and these 3 are in Phoenix. And you can find more information on our website, actual photo albums, and there's even a video of this garden transformation. So here we have some sponsors and partners and donors providing us with plants. Plant Oregon has been donating a lot of plants. Shooting Star provides us discounted plants. Indigo Creek Outfitters, I'd like to say thank you for their sponsorship. A couple of months ago, some dollars to help us create this. Access is also donating dollars. And then Klamath Siskiyou Native Seeds provides plants. And thank you to C3 Enterprises for helping us move soil and do all the good work. Vanessa co-owns that company, and we're so happy to have her there with us. And we are always inviting other businesses and organizations to become a pollinator garden partner. So why do we even care about all this? Well, maybe because of these photos on the screen. Maybe you can get an idea as to where I'm going to go with that. So pollination is vital to the life cycle of most flowering plants. If we didn't have pollination, if we didn't have the seed being fertilized, we would not be eating nutritious foods. Many fruits and vegetables are the result of pollination. And in fact, 90% of all flowering species need pollination, and we're not talking honeybees necessarily. We have flies that are actually pollinators, beetles, butterflies, moths, birds. Bats are not pollinators here in Southern Oregon, but are important in other places. And then wasps and bees. They feed us. Many things come because of pollination, including coffee, nuts, carrots. Flowers are pollinated. That creates a seed that we can plant the next spring. Even medicine like echinacea, if any of you are taking echinacea, and they are certainly providing us beauty. The flowering trees and shrubs that we see around us are often the result of pollination. That cleans our air, keeps our water clean, grows the wildflowers, and then such an important food source for insects, other insects, birds, other wildlife. Many of you may have noticed that birds have declined over the last several decades, and much of that is because they don't have the food source, because the caterpillars of moths and butterflies actually need native plants to eat. If they don't have native plants to eat, there will be no caterpillars, and therefore no butterflies, and therefore no birds. We know that they're declining all around the world, not just here in Rogue Valley. The fire certainly had a big impact. Obviously, with 2,000 acres burned, that was obviously going to take out a lot of pollinator habitat, but around the world, insect populations are decreasing, and no surprise perhaps that bees, butterflies, and moths are being hit the hardest. So there have been several studies, multiple compilations of studies, and they all come up to that same conclusion. Do you need a study? So most of us on this call, not all of us, probably remember the windshield on the right, and now we mostly see the windshield on the left. Many reasons for the declines. Loss of habitat, including from fire. Development is certainly creating a place not conducive to pollinators and other wildlife. We have invasives. The Himalayan blackberries are one example, but there's many, many others. People are using pesticides. There's light pollution even that can cause harm to moths who do a lot of night pollination. Climate change is taking a big toll. I'm not quite sure how to decrease that impact other than plant a lot of trees and and less concrete. And then there's even other reasons, reduced protein, so the food is less nutritious. And then one more reason, which is called lack of knowledge. People aren't aware of pollinators maybe to begin with, and then how we are actually impacting them. So there has been a sea change in the world of pollinators. People are going from, oh no, something's eating my plant, to yay, something's eating my plant. As I said, the more caterpillars that can eat our native plants, then the more birds and more wildlife. And you go from, not sure who's not muted, but I can hear it in my ears.
Sorry, it's muted now.
Okay, thank you so much. So yes, we're wanting to encourage people to be more like the Yarden. Yes, the Yarden on the right. And just really quickly, I'm going to go through who some of the pollinators are. We have so many species of native bees in this country, not to mention the world, 20,000 species in the world, over 600 species in Oregon, and this is way beyond the honeybee. They all have different life cycles and times that they appear in the year compared to the honeybee, which is a non-native European honeybee, which we all love because of honey, but they can actually be impacting our native bee species. There's also, as I've mentioned, flies, beetles, and wasps, and those large numbers are the number of species in the world of each of these families, genera. I'm not good at my Latin, so however you define the wasps, you have 30,000 in the world and 400,000 in beetles, 110,000 flies, species. These are species, not individuals. And then we also have hummingbirds, butterflies, and moths that I mentioned. Large numbers of that. We have about 125 species of butterflies here in Southern Oregon, in case you're wanting to know that. You've heard me talk about native a couple of times, and why am I stressing that? It's because if we are wanting to restore this land back to the way it was, then we're going to want to look at a lot of our natives. Planting a beautiful tree that you like that isn't native is fine, but if we can bring back more natives, we could require less maintenance, less fertilizer, in fact, no fertilizer, and often less water. And they're the ones that are feeding our insect population and therefore our birds and creating life. For those of you who like to read, I strongly recommend Bringing Nature Home by Dr. Doug Tallamy. He's an entomology professor out of Delaware, and he's been talking about this now for probably 30 years. And Bringing Nature Home, that book is probably why I'm standing in front of you today. One of the big takeaways to me in that book is that a ginkgo tree, as beautiful as it is, it comes from China and it will support one species, and a native oak, no matter where you live, could support 532 species. So if we begin to think of plants, not just beauty, stay that way. I'll take a picture. It'll look like that the next time I come back. I survived the gardening experience. That isn't a way a pollinator garden is. A pollinator garden is always changing, and it's actually for the pollinators and the other wildlife to eat. Food, native plants are food, just like food in our garden is food for us, our vegetable garden. So this is a caterpillar I took on a Phacelia leaf in front of our building in our garden, and I was so pleased to see it. It's just probably a little not very wonderfully looking moth, but it's going to feed some birds, and you can see where it's been eaten. There's a sweat bee taking pollen and nectar. Here's another caterpillar on tarweed, which is coyote tobacco, which is an important, here's again another food source. This is one of my favorite plants. The seeds are all gone, and the seeds are certainly leaving on this big sunflower head. This one, if you have a minute, I'm going to play a video. Deb is quite familiar with this story, since she's the one that found these caterpillars. Deb comes into the office one day and said, Kristina, there's something wrong with the pearly everlastings, because look at that. Doesn't that look terrible? Well, guess what we found? So that's Deb, actually. If you can hear that, you might not be able to hear that. So we ended up with at least 50 of these caterpillars. And this is on a beautiful native plant, although it's starting to really look worse and worse as the time goes on. And we ended up, need to stop that. Now I practiced this and I was able to get out of it. Okay, I'll just go on. Okay, so we ended up with 50 of those caterpillars at least in our nursery eating. The pearly everlasting was completely consumed. We began having chrysalises and we began having butterflies, and we released about 50 butterflies this past summer. I'm going to give you a little bit of a break. Here is our pollinator garden. This might have been 2 summers ago. These are all natives. We have Oregon sunshine poppies, penstemon humilis, Grindelia nana, which is Idaho gumweed. There's a sticky monkey flower in there. I'm sure the tarweed is in there. Yep, there's the tarweed. So I'm really happy that we have this growing right along Main Street for people to see, and the butterflies and the bees to come to. And this is what we're looking for. See if I can keep on going. Yep. And so what we do to create a pollinator landscape is plant as many natives as possible, trees, shrubs, ground covers, flowers that are going to be blooming spring through fall that'll provide pollen and nectar. Also host plants, as I've mentioned, where the plants get eaten. Keep your garden a little bit messy. Think connectivity, rethink aesthetics, so your garden isn't picture perfect, and think about it's an ecosystem to feed multiple creatures. Here's some of our wonderful favorite plants. These, we're starting off with the trees and the shrubs, the oak tree. And I know there's been a lot of talk about trees in the landscape and how much they burn. But actually there's studies, for instance, on the oak tree that in California, which is full of oaks and also fire. And oaks are actually not necessarily combustible. It's so much of the dry grass and other things around it. So I encourage you to leave oaks as much as possible. And here's some other plants, flowers that are perennial that we are growing. And these are annuals. Again, we have all of these. And we also have grasses and ground covers. Even though grass has no flowers, it's actually a great host plant for a number of butterflies, especially skippers. Strawberries are a ground cover, beautiful, and they also are a great pollinator plant. And so again, back to Doug Tallamy, he's written this in the negative, so you have to really kind of think about it. But he's saying that if you have more than 30% non-natives, especially the woodies in your landscape, then it actually is when the bird population starts to decline. So you want to have as many natives as possible. So you also want to provide places for bees and other insects to nest in rocks and under leaves. This is an Anna swallowtail chrysalis that is hanging there that you probably wouldn't notice on a stem. And bees also nest in the ground. Here is a video. I don't know if anybody has ever seen this, where you have a digger bee digging. When I took this video, there were probably, I don't know, maybe 100 of these on the embankment. And so she's making her nest to lay her eggs. And most native bees don't sting. There are exceptions. Bumblebee will sting, but a lot of the smaller ones, even if they sting, they're pretty minor. This is really a cool thing to see. And then you also want to provide moisture. The mud is not only for the butterflies, but also for mason bees who use that mud material to make their nests. And then don't use pesticides, insecticides especially. They are systemic and they get into the ecosystem, and you end up killing much more than just the insects. Water soluble, it ends up in the creeks. We actually have neonicotinoids at a concerning level in our water. OSU Pesticide Stewardship Partnership is doing testing for a number of years, and we definitely have it higher. Orchards and other agricultural entities use those. But these are the words that you would find on the bottle. You're not going to find the word neonicotinoid. You would find these other ugly words if you went and looked in the store and looked at usually it's blue bottles, just as a key. And then neonicotinoids is what got us all started when they killed, when somebody up in Salem, no, actually it was Wilson, they killed about 50,000 bumblebees by using a metacloprid on a linden tree. And then there's other things that happen. Hummingbirds, they've tested the urine and they have neonics in the urine. And there's other major issues. Even glyphosate is a problem. Remember, 70% of the bees nest in the ground. So keeping your pollinator garden, especially free of herbicides, is a good thing. And we are starting to rebuild our Rogue Buzzway project, where we're going to map pollinator gardens. And so Tula is our intern, and hopefully we will have some news for you. Well, not hopefully, we will have some news probably next month about how people can get back on the Buzzway and rebuild this. It sort of took a hiatus during the COVID and the fire and so forth. So we're getting ready to announce that again. So just talking briefly about why we're doing this. And now I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. This is a picture of Vanessa and Artie, one of our wonderful board members, talking to Tom and Melissa in Ashland after they had filled out the application. This was our on-site design meeting. And then we do design work. This is Vanessa and Artie, and this is Tina, and I'm taking a photo. And then we have an install day. This is a project that we have coming up next Tuesday, right, Tina? With SOU, the fire ecology class. They're going to help us put in this. It's rather a large garden, so I'm thankful we have 15 quote kids to help us. This is Christine's garden. She works at PPRV through Easter seals, and she was our test case. Her home did not burn, but everything else around it did. So this is what it looked like first, and then this is how we started working on it. And this is the planting day. Christine is helping us get it in. And this is what it looked like, I guess, later in the year. Christine is putting in seeds, and we've learned that when you have someone who doesn't really know about this, you need to make sure they don't put in too many seeds, because Deb, I know, is laughing about this, because we have more poppies in that garden than I think we probably need. Even I will admit that. And then this is Christine watering our plants in our nursery. And this is another garden we did in Phoenix. This was what, our third garden maybe. And this neighborhood was completely gone. The only thing that was left for Patty's house was the wall. And so this was the day that we were putting it in March. And then this is what it looked like in June. And then this is what it looked like this current winter. And so even this winter, it looks beautiful. And this is a list of the different plants that we installed. So that's my presentation. I went through pretty quickly. I'm happy to provide this PDF to you. It has links in it. You can watch the videos again. And then what I would suggest also is looking at these links if you're interested. I know this program is not for everybody. There's people that don't want to deal with the gardens. But for those of you that do, I'm hoping that this inspired you. And even if you're not interested, I'm hoping that this was informative. You might tell someone else about it. I'm happy to answer questions. I want to show you this link here. Will take you to our web page where you can see photo albums, and you can actually see the process that we go through. And this is a video, this is a video right here that a wonderful friend, Wanda Borland, took about the transformation that we did for Stella's garden. I just found she did a great job. Yeah, so I want to thank Wanda for that. And so my last slide is basically just saying thank you, and we're happy to answer questions. And if you want to sign up for our Pollinator Times newsletter, it's on our website. And then these are just some of the events that we have coming up through May 7. And then I guess the last thing, I have 4 minutes left in a 30-minute slot. Tina, would you like to add anything, or share anything else about the program? Or Deb?
Here we go.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Sorry, can you hear me or see me?
Yes, both.
Both. Okay, good. I don't know how this works. I was just told to call in and I just had some questions about housing. I'm a fire victim. I've already met with a couple of people and I was just wondering about this new program that one of my friends had texted me. It's called Reorgan. And I was just wondering some information about that.
Hey, I wanted to say real quick, we're recording a presentation right now. And
Oh.
maybe once we turn the recording off, we can go back to resources. Not to
Okay.
interrupt, but let's wrap
No,
up.
I don't know how this works. I've never done this before.
Yeah, no worries.
What's your name?
Brandon Bourdon.
Oh, Brandon, yeah, we talked to you at the office, Jose and I.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks
Yeah.
for showing up. Let's, like Cass said, let's field some questions from this presentation. And when we're done with that, we'll talk about housing.
Okay. Do I stay here or?
Yeah, if you could stay here, that would be great.
Okay.
People have questions, or I'm sorry, Tina, you were about to add in anything that you wanted to.
Well, all of you have been through a tremendous trauma and it seems still going through something. It was nice to listen to Walter reminisce about his garden previously, and they could offer, just thinking about planning for something like this could offer you a lot of hope. So it's not only creating life for you, but creating life for, the valley, the rivers, all living organisms of systems and beings and everything else. And the Pollinator Project is, another organization you guys can access to help you rebuild your lives. That's all.
Thank you, Tina.
Anyone have questions for?
Michael does.
Great.
Yes, I wanted to ask, one, were you guys the ones handing out the seed balls at some of the meetups? That was really cool.
Oh, yeah. We were at the one in Talent, the Jackson County Long-Term Recovery Group.
Right.
Yeah, we were there in Talent. And then that same day we went to Phoenix, the high school.
Yeah, right. Anyway, they are alive and doing well in Roseburg.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so they spread like wildfire. Oh, no, sorry about that phrase.
Yeah, wildflowers.
Wildflowers. Thank you.
Could you send a photo and take it and send it to us?
Unfortunately, we don't live there anymore. Or fortunately, however you look at it.
Both fortunately and unfortunately.
Right.
Got it. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate that. That's awesome.
And then a couple more questions. One is, so the next time we see the wasps building their nests underneath the overhang at the front door, maybe we should think about leaving them alone?
Yes, please. Thank you so much for asking that question. I'm going to go back for just a second, if I can do that on my thing, because I put wasps on there for a reason, and you are exactly right. Where did it go? It is up here. You'd think I'd know my slideshow in order by now. Here it is. So yeah, the black wasps are pretty benign. You may not even notice them as wasps. This is a yellow jacket. I would advise staying away from yellow jackets as much as you can. Although if you have a back 40 and they're out there just fine, that's not a problem. But if they're next to your house, then you may want to consider wasps and yellow jackets are not paper wasps and vice versa. Paper wasps are the ones that you see under your eaves, and they are
Okay.
pretty benign. I have had personal close-up experience with them. I can tell you a story if I don't know how much time you want to have on this, but I actually really like paper wasps. I think they're very super cool, and they won't sting you. They won't come after you like wasps do. Generally speaking, I don't want to guarantee that, but generally speaking, they're not a hive oriented organism like a yellow jacket is. They also serve as food for birds later in the season. I will often see the nest on the ground and pretty empty because the bird has gotten into it. So it's actually a good bird food, the eggs that are in there. Wasps are very important for our ecosystem. They help clean up dead things. They take out good insects as well as bad insects in your veggie garden. So unless you're threatened by them, I would leave them alone. Wasps are amazing creatures. They can be some of them can be so tiny. Some of the species can be so tiny that they can lay their egg in a monarch egg.
Mm.
And so obviously monarch people don't like those wasps, but I think they're pretty cool.
And they're paper wasps because of how the hive looks?
That is correct. So it's papery. So they take plant material and they chew it up and then they put it out and then somehow they make those little wonderful nests. So yes, they're called paper wasps.
Okay, great. I want to make sure to get a copy of the presentation here.
Okay.
Want to show it to people.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I
And
did
what's your name? What is your name?
Michael Rhodes.
You're Michael Rhodes. Okay. The way I've
Yes.
got my view set up, I don't know who's actually talking. Sorry about that. I should have changed the view. Okay,
That's all
great.
right.
Thank you, Michael.
You're
And I
welcome.
wanted to mention, as far as watching this presentation, I have Audra working on a YouTube channel for us, and all of the meetup presentations will be shared there.
Okay.
Far out.
Yes.
Good idea, Cass. And Audra and everyone. I was wondering if you guys get questions about, what is fire safe landscaping that's also good for pollinators and how you
Mhm.
answer that question.
Yeah, it's a hard question. I should have said this at the beginning. I'm not a botanist. I'm not an entomologist. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a scientist of any sort. I know Chaya, Dr. Werner was on here before, and she was talking about that. Fire safety is obviously a concern. There are certain plants that are flammable, including non-natives such as lavender, ceanothus, and things like that are pollinator plants. And I believe there's a distance that is recommended that you keep them away from your house. I also know that plants don't necessarily ignite, and I also know that having things close together and having fuel is a great reason to have things burn. The native plants are fire adapted, meaning they can burn, but that doesn't mean that they are going to go up in flames. There's a lot of non-native plants that are actually more flammable. This cypresses and junipers that are way out in the land, that are ubiquitous in the landscape. So it's a good question. Yes, wait, hold this. I think I put it on here. I should have put this on here. Sorry, I can add that before I send it to you. Rachel Whirling of OSU did a wonderful presentation maybe a year and a half ago about fire resistant native plants in a fire-wise landscape, maybe I should say it that way. So I will add Rachel's presentation to this. And when you go to our web page on our website, the resources and more, if you're interested in learning more about pretty much anything I've talked about, you can go to here, and there's probably more than you really want. Plant lists and so forth. Rachel's talk is on here too, if I could remember about that. But yes, we have good information for you.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to seeing the presentation too.
Okay, good. Other
Very-
questions? Jose, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, so as Walter was talking about his garden and wanting to redo it, so how would he go about, like, let's say, reaching out to you guys and applying for a program?
Yep, good question. Thank you so much. So we do have an application. It's online. And so what I can do is make this link live. It'd probably be the easiest way, or I'll just send it to, I don't know, should I send it to Cass or
Yeah.
Katie or both of you?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll send this
Okay.
presentation to Cass and Katie along with a link to the application.
Perfect.
Perfect.
And then you can fill that out. It gives us information, you know, what your interests are and what your experiences are. And then what we'll do is set up a design meeting like this and come out and talk with you and then figure it out. You know, I should have said this, I should have written it in here that, you know, we're not able to obviously do your whole yard. Although sometimes our projects get a little bit bigger than maybe we should, but generally we're looking for like about a 200 square foot garden area, something that's manageable. These are all volunteers that are doing this work, except for the SOU class. This was our first time doing this, and we're hoping we're going to do that again next year with Dr. Werner's class. But we have volunteers that do the work, and so we obviously want to be able to manage the whole project. But yes, we will get you an application.
Great.
Awesome. Other questions or comments?
And I will say that we are looking for funding for this. As of now, we are using money to purchase plants or using the plants that we're raising. We also sell plants. So getting a source for funding so that we could actually hire a independent contractor person to help us manage this as well as our garden would be really helpful. It would really help us do more of what we're wanting to do.
Great.
So I appreciate y'all's interest. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I definitely want to comment on how wonderful this presentation's been and how much I was looking forward to learning all of this stuff from you. I just,
Well, thank you.
plant nerd big time.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, we're neighbors, so we can talk, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for being here and taking the time in the evening to talk with us and share some of what you're up to.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and then we can continue talking after.